The philosophy of computer science is concerned with the philosophical questions that arise with the study of computer science, which is understood to mean not just programming, but the whole study of concepts and methodologies that assist in the development and maintenance of computer systems. Despite some attempts to develop a philosophy of computer science like the philosophy of physics or the philosophy of mathematics, there is still no common understanding of the content, aim, focus, or topic of the philosophy of computer science. The word infosphere denotes the whole informational environment constituted by all informational entities, their properties, interactions, processes, and mutual relations. The world is part of the infosphere, not as a virtual environment supported by a genuinely material reality behind. Rather, it is the world itself that is increasingly interpreted and understood informationally. The infosphere has moved from being a way to refer to the space of information to being synonymous with existence. In this sense, existence is information, and entities have an intrinsic worthiness as embodiments of this information. Entities or systems change, which means that some of these properties change value. Whether an agent or patient of change, an entity has its evolution captured at any instant by the values of its attributes. Thus, an entity can be thought of as having states determined by instantaneous values. However, it's not that entities and their information states are subject to change. Rather, entities are their information, and as far as one can observe an entity properties, any change in the entity corresponds to an informational state transition and vice versa. Observing a changing system is to observe the interaction of dynamic informational entities in which changes in state map to transition from one state to another. A transition may or may not be deterministic, depending on the level of abstraction, but the informational entity is a transitional system. It is the integrity of the information in this process that must be considered when one entity acts upon another. As informational organisms, humans are transition systems in the infosphere. We are intelligent inforgs in charge of the infosphere, and this is the fourth revolution.
I would claim that you understand something only if you can program it. So I would claim that, and I'll talk more about this, to understand something means you can program it, and I'll say much more about this. You can program something if you can understand it. You understand something only if you can program it. And I'll say much more about that. And on the other hand, I view this as so this is the question of epistemology, really. And on the other hand, this is physics or ontology, I view this as a paper on physics, because Turing is talking about machines. Now we call it a Turing machine. Turing didn't call that in his paper. But he's talking about the power of machines, calculating machines, engines. What we can compute depends on the laws of physics in your universe. And by saying that a Turing machine is what you can compute in this universe, you are saying something very fundamental about the universe.
in computers and computer science, the innovations and the creative inventions, if you will, would come from the users. That it would be the creative use of the medium that would push the medium itself. And guess what? That's actually what's happened. That's really what has happened. It's not a bunch of computer scientists inventing. It's the creative users. We're seeing it more and Google and type in Negroponte or Twitter, and I looked at what people quote, and it's this line on the screen that I found sort of like 30% of the references to me pull up this one line, computing is no longer about computers, that is 15 years old. And I said, wow, that's what Picnic is about. The computing is no longer about computers.